Welcome to our Teen and Parent webinar series, where we explore one of the most important journeys families face together: understanding the teen brain, the risks of addiction, and the power of healthy communication. Adolescence is a time of rapid growth and change, physically, emotionally, and neurologically, and these changes can sometimes make it hard for parents and teens to connect. In this series, we'll break down the science of the developing brain, discuss how substance use impacts decision-making and long-term health, and provide practical tools for strengthening communication and building resilience at home. Today, we have Dr. Donald Reed from the McDowell County Hope Coalition and Mr. Cliff Adkins from Clear Story Counseling.
I'm Dr. Donald Reed. Welcome to the McDowell County Hope Coalition Mental Health Webinar Series, where we come together as a community and have real conversations about the challenges our youth and families face, and more importantly, how we can respond with understanding, support, and action. Today's topic can often go unnoticed, but affects many teens and children in our communities. We're going to talk about the topic of perfectionism. On the surface, perfectionism can look like success. It can look like good grades, strong performance, high expectations, but underneath all of that can lead to anxiety, the fear of failure, low self-worth, and emotional burnout. Many of our young people live with the feeling that they're never good enough, no matter how hard they try. So today we're going to talk about how to recognize perfectionism in children, maybe even in the fact that sometimes parents perpetuate or push perfectionism in children, how it impacts their mental health, and most importantly, how we as parents, grandparents, educators, and community members can help build confidence, balance, and resilience in our children. Joining us today, we have Mr. Brock Jackson and Mr. Cliff Adkins. And Brock, I will hand this to you.
All righty. As always, let's go ahead and get this kicked off here. So with our first question, how can parents and teachers tell the difference between healthy motivation and unhealthy perfectionism?
I think you're going to be able to, you'll see it with, you see it with how the task impacts the child or the teenager or the person for that matter. You'll see the impact. If they are energized, if the task gets them, if they are energized and they are enjoying doing what they do, then that's going to be, they're motivated. They're more motivated. If it's overwhelming them and they're so terrified of outcome, they're so terrified of the results, you start to see a different turn. There's a fear while they're doing the task. There's this underlying fear that's driving them. That's going to be that unhealthy. That's that perfectionism that you start to see come to the surface. But if they're getting energy from the task and they're feeling, you can tell that their mood is upbeat, or they're just generally moving through the task fairly smooth, that will just be motivation. But the fear of failure is going to be the biggest, it's going to be the easiest thing to spot when it comes to perfectionism.
When we say perfectionism in children, what does that actually look like in real life?
You'll see it in one, like I said, you'll see that unsettling. They're almost unsettled while they're doing the task. There's not a peace at all about doing whatever they're doing. And you'll start to notice how if they feel like any part of it's any part of it's wrong, they want to start over. They want to start over and redo it. They want to, it's very all or nothing thinking. I either have to get, it's 100% or I've failed. And you'll start to hear this language. If they get a B, they just collapse. If they, their homework is just erased like crazy, and not because they're trying to figure it out, but because they just have to get it just perfect. With little kids, that they'll have a meltdown because a Lego is out of place and the whole thing has to just be torn down and start all over because it's messed up. It's wrong. Um, that's where you'll start to see it in kids. It's a very all or nothing language as well that comes with that, because that's the thinking is I either get 100% and I have succeeded, or I've everything else is failure. There's no room in their thinking for any sort of mistakes whatsoever, or learning really. They just want to, and so what that will often lead to is they'll avoid any task that they can't master immediately, which is, as we know as adults, is a very unrealistic way to move through life.
How do social media and I guess the comparison of culture play into this?
Well, you're seeing, you know, again, perfectionism is focused on this perfect outcome, this unrealistic, irrational outcome. And so social media is often that for others. Like, so if I'm looking at your all social media, or let's say I'm wanting to get into fitness, if I go onto social media, I'm seeing everyone's end product. I don't, they're not making videos whenever they were just starting off in the gym. You're seeing what they look like a year, 2 years into the gym. And here I am just starting. And so I start looking at a final product, so to speak. And so now I'm comparing myself to someone's, again, very filtered, very manicured, put together image. And I'm so aware of all of my flaws and faults. And so if I have all or nothing thinking, I'm going to think, well, if I'm not like that, then I'm a failure. Again, it's that intense language and thinking.
How does perfectionism connect to anxiety, depression, or really just burnout in young people?
Yeah. Um, I I saw this a lot in students who, again, they don't, I mean, we all know what it is to be human, and it's so unrealistic to think that you're going to be perfect. And no one will ever say that they want to be perfect. They don't, that's never a thought. That's the tricky part, is like, parents will say things like, it doesn't have to be perfect. And they'll say, I know, because that's a wild thing to say. I want to be perfect. We all know that that's a wild thing to say. But yet, what do we think perfect is? Not making any mistakes, zero mistakes. That's that is the definite, that's what perfection is. That's what perfect is. And so if that's the way we're living, you can imagine you are essentially trying to, you know, uh, complete a task that is incompletable. You can't ever get there because it's never going to be good enough. It's never going to be good enough. It's never going to be enough. Um, and anxiety, I mean, you can see very easily where that would creep in. I mean, that fear, that constant being driven by fear. Your body is in a continuous fight or flight state where your adrenaline is like firing off constantly over normal tasks throughout the day, or a normal lifestyle, the way that you live. Your fight or flight is in constant activation. And so that's going to create unrest and unsettling inside of you, that will often, obviously, over time, is going to lead to severe depression. I mean, because who wants to be stuck in that state? Who wants to be in that constant state of turmoil all the time? And then obviously, if rather people often rather than look at themselves and say, "Oh, the because of the way I am is what's causing me to burn out," they say, "Oh, the task. It's the task. That's what the problem is. So I'll just quit. I'll just cut that out of my life, and then I won't have to worry about it." And it's like, no, you'll have to worry about it just somewhere else. You're just going to shift. It's that way of thinking that you have to be perfect.
So kind of a follow-up question to what you was talking about at the beginning of that answer there. What does it do to a child's self-worth and the identity over time?
Yeah, it's the sad it's sad to watch what happens. Because I've worked with students and now adults, and it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. Like the effects of it will stay with a person, and it just you start to equate your worth with your results, not your effort, not your effort, not just who you are as a person, not your drive, not where your heart is. You start to, if I do good, then I am good. And when we say when I do good, that definition, that rubric for like what the grading scale for what that is could be so unrealistic. And so they're always striving to do better and better and better. And you start to feel like, "Ha, I'm not worth anything because how I'm you may have a good day and you feel super good, and then the next day maybe you mess up really bad and then you feel like trash, and then now I'm bad and now I got to do good again." And that's just such a roller coaster, and it just does so much harm. I mean, so much damage to a child for, and it's very easy to do. For example, I see it like in my son. When my son does something good, it's so natural to be like, way to go, but like that's amazing. Or like when he comes and shows me something he made, it's so easy to praise the product. And I've caught that in myself. And so still praise the product, but also go, "Hey, did you work hard? Man, that's awesome that you put so much effort into that. That's awesome that you took time to figure out that problem. That's the process. It's praising that process and learning that we're more than just the result, but the hard work and the effort and the drive that's within us and just who we are matters far more than the outcome."
That's a very deep take there. What are some simple, practical ways parents can respond when a child is being overly hard on themselves?
The the way I grew up, it's kind of funny, and we make jokes about this all the time in therapy and stuff. It's like, well, just stop doing the thing, just stop doing that, stop worrying about it. And the real question is why is the kid doing that? Why are they doing that? And kids want validation. We want validation so bad from those that we respect and honor. And when if that kid is striving for perfectionism, there's a belief somewhere in them that they're only going to get that if they do something honorable, do something amazing. And so you validate the kid's feelings in that, like, I see this is really stressing you out. Like, this is really, and then you talk to them like, you know, no matter how this turns out, I'm here for you. You know that no matter what you do, I love you. You know that the outcome of this test, this homework assignment, this job interview is not going to determine how I view you. It's not going to determine how much you're worth or how much you matter. Um, Again, one of the things, not that I got, but I've just noticed from therapy and from myself, and when I talk to my 4-year-old, like if I'm like, "I love you, bud," and we're often like, "Have a good day at school," I will always add, "But I don't even care if you do have a good or bad day. It doesn't matter." Like that statement, "I still love you. I still love you," when he messes up. I love you. Everything, all the mess ups, all the mistakes, you reinforce that they still matter, there's still value, that you're proud of them for trying, you'll walk with them. And uh I may be jumping ahead in questions, I don't know, but I think the biggest thing that a parent can do, one of the biggest things, is we have to model that also. We can't treat ourselves, we can't live like we're all or nothing thinking and then tell our kids it's about grace. If we're living by these rules and perfectionism, but then tell our kids, oh, but it's actually not that. It's there's grace and love, and I love who you are, because parents will often try to be perfect. You don't want your kids to know that you mess up. You don't want your kids to know that you made a judgment call and it was a wrong judgment call. But we do it happens all the time. We'll give bad advice all the time. And that's a perfect opportunity to model for your kids. This is what it is to course correct, because that's what breaks perfectionism. Perfectionism says there is no course correction. There is just one path, and that's all there is. And if I don't achieve it this way, I failed. But when parents are able to model how to course correct, that does wonders for their kids.
How do we help kids understand that their value is not tied up to performance?
You praise them through mistakes. And I don't mean silly like praise, and I'm not talking about coddling or like excusing, problems. And but you just continue to reinforce that they matter no matter the outcome. They matter no matter the outcome. It just doesn't, that you're with them no matter what. It's not, they're not who they or what they do. They're just who they are. They're unique. They have specific stories, specific characteristics, and that's who they are. They're not their tasks.
What are some ways to build confidence and resilience in children who fear failure?
Well, that's a tricky one. Because a lot of times we grew up in like the if you start it, you don't quit. You don't quit, you just keep going. Well, sometimes that's bad for everybody. Um, and but you want to stay alongside your child and encourage them and push them, and you just keep encouraging them that it's your effort, it's your bounce back. It's like, have you tried all the ways? Have you thought of all the different ways that you can do this? Have you give them more options, you give them more routes and more paths. Again, what you're trying to break is a single-minded, all or nothing thinking. Um, and to teach them that there's maybe more than one way to do this thing. There's, again, and it's okay if it's not perfect. Like it's okay. And to tell them stories about when you've messed up too, and how you bounced back, and to give them examples and models of people who've been resilient is crucial too.
If a young person is listening and feels like they're never good enough, what would you say directly to them?
Whew. That I have the belief that every individual is here for a reason. And that it's not, again, what that person does that makes them valuable. It's who they are. And so in some way they connect into a bigger story, that you connect into a bigger story that's bigger than yours. And some other character within the story, some other person within the story is going to need your person. They're going to need to see your personality. They're going to need to hear your voice. They're going to need to see your smile. They're going to need to hear your laugh. They're going to need your shoulder to lean on. They're going to need your ear to listen to them. That you're part of something, you're part of a bigger story, and it's going to be who you are that brings that out.
Okay, well, our time is gone for this topic, but there were three distinct statements you made I just want to repeat in our wrap up. That it's important that we help children realize they are not defined by their task. That children are not defined by their task, or really that their worth is not defined by their task. As parents, that it's important that there is consistent love and support regardless of the outcome. I'm going to say that again. As parents, as grandparents, that there's consistent love and support regardless of the outcome, and that the process and effort should really be the focus and not the outcome. And to borrow the statement of one of my friends, God loves effort. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you join us next month for our webinar series. Have a great day.